to go. As the, not as the, but as the. Oh, it's almost like the word the. There's length in the vowel the word the. The is one of the worst words that we ever sing, because it gets to be the as the deer panteth for the water, so my soul. Bring those vowels into line. And you can do that in the small group setting. So that's the first step, is small sections singing, facing each other, so that, and you make them do this, create that unity of sound in that little group. Then, put them all in a big group and have them sing across to each other in sections. Begin to develop a unity of sound that way. And then when you begin to get it, and you have to do this sometimes on simple songs, sometimes on just, two-part, but you can do four-part, and it still works. And then, here's the worst part, the hardest part. Have them turn around and remember what they did to make the sound unified. Because when you're all singing toward each other, you're reinforcing each other. You're hearing this, and it gives you courage, and you sing great. But as soon as you turn around, it's like singing in a snowstorm. But that creates great courage in your choir. Because if you require them to remember what it felt like while you were all together, turn around. And one of the things that I say very often is listen sideways and blend sideways. This sound is a very unifying sound. That kind of resonation. And when I conduct, many times, my students will see me do this. As I'm conducting on, the sound gets a little bit out of unity, I'll do this. Which means think sideways, listen sideways, blend sideways in the sound that you're producing. I have a handout for vocal health. It talks about tips for good vocal health, and one of the things I wanted to do before we finish tonight was talk about hymns, talk about praise songs, talk about the way these work in many of our worship services, and some of the things that we can do to focus on the praise of God regardless of what the kind of song is. But I'll touch just a little bit on vocal health, and then do we have this, Stephen? Both uniformity and unity. Uniformity means no one stands out in the group. No one person, because of either what they're wearing or what they're looking like, should stand out in a group. Everyone can look and dress. Some churches have rules about jewelry up front. Some don't. But just help people remember that the focus of this is to honor God with your music, and this is not a show for any member of the performance. And I say performance in a respectful way, because that has some bad connotations, and I don't mean it to be. So uniformity is important, but even more important is unity. Be of the same purpose. Understand the spiritual component of the song that you're singing. That's your responsibility as a leader, is to give them what this means. As you think about as the deer panting for the water, as you think about Jesus, the whole gospel is contained in that one little song. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Those thoughts come through your voice when you're unified in what that, just like that song Moses, my kids were so locked into that it came together in the audience and even the stage hands. And as a conductor, conduct, and as a leader, the soul of the music is important. What is that message that we're talking about? So if you're in front of a choir, it's okay for you, as you gesture through the tempo and the dynamics, to have that sense that this is what this song is about. I do crazy little things when I conduct. If there's something about heaven, I might just put my hand up like this as I'm conducting. If there's something about strong, be brave, be strong, and courageous is something that my little kids are singing, and if there's a place where I don't want them to forget the word, I'll just do a little bit of this. You do those things. You do a little bit of this, and there's one. There's one line. What was the song? Untamable. Oh, impossible, unknown. You set the stars in the sky, and you know that my name. You are amazing God, all powerful. And these are my 5th through 8. All powerful. And then I do this. Untamable. It works. They remember the word when I go like that. I don't make the noise, but I just and they know what it is. So don't be afraid to give little hints. And by the way, if your group can memorize, you are so rewarded as a conductor for the work that you've done. And the communication that you have with your members when music is memorized is exponentially greater than if they have this folder now. I've got guys in my men's chorus, and I started this men's chorus in 2005. And I have guys that still have their folder for the same songs that we learned in 2005. I have asked them not to have it, but short of losing that one bass that has that low B flat that I need, I'm not going to argue the case because I want that low B flat more than I want him to not have a folder. So it's the art of compromise, I guess. So you find the soul of the music, you do these little tricks, but memorization, so important. For those of you that are in worship, before we get into vocal health, well, I'll bring that back when we talk about hymns selection, anthem selection, praise songs, praise singing, that type of thing. So here we are, vocal health. Very few things have a more profound effect on your voice than sleep. Sleep, really. If you're rested, your body functions better, your vocal cords function better, because actually this is a physical thing that goes on. This is physiology. This is the body. This is sets of muscles. If I said clap when I say 4, go ahead. I'm going to count to 4, and I want you to clap on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. You were sitting there. You had to bring your hands up. You had to get them ready. The brain said, okay. I mean, you didn't hear the brain. You just did this. You brought it up like that. You brought the hands apart, and on that beat, we made the sound. There's a complex mess of stuff that goes on in the body. To clap, to walk and step and sing. I had my little kids doing the Cameroon praise processional. Praise, praise, praise the Lord. Praise God's holy name. Hallelujah. Praise, praise. I mean, it's a wonderful little processional that I had them doing, but I had some of them that were doing this the whole time. This was after weeks and weeks and weeks of practice. They just stared at their feet because they hadn't quite gotten those coordinating things going. And so when we sing, when we phonate, a lot happens. Air in, there it is. Then we have the tone. So all of these things, the coordination of singing is really marvelous. And if we don't have the coordination because we haven't gotten sleep, and your voice gets hoarse quicker when you don't have enough sleep. Your body will just break down if you don't have enough sleep. Okay, excessive talking, yelling, and especially screaming. Screaming, and I describe this as like being slapped in the mouth again and again until your lips swell. Screaming will do that to your vocal cords. I had a young fellow. His dad called me over to his house. He said, I don't know what's wrong with Lucas's voice. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Lucas, if you're seeing this.
No.
I don't know what's wrong with his voice. And I said, well, let me listen to him. I went over to the piano and I listened to it. And his voice is really hoarse. Really, there were issues there. And so I just asked him a couple questions. I said, Lucas, actually the first question I asked, I said, are you in martial arts? Yeah, I take Taekwondo every such and such and such, and it's, I said, show me how you use your voice in that. And he goes, hey! He's doing all these things. I go, young man, You have to make a choice. If you want to be in the boys' choir of Orange County, All-American Boys Choir of Orange County, he had been invited, but he couldn't pass the audition. I said, if you want to be in the boys' choir, you have to give up taekwondo. And he was, what? His sister was in taekwondo, and he didn't want her beating him up. And he made the decision to give up taekwondo. He went, and I gave him exercises. He worked out. He auditioned. He got in. He has been to China. He has been to Europe. He has sung solos for the All-American Boys Choir because he chose to use his voice and stop being in martial arts. Because he was constantly yelling. His cords were constantly swollen. Because when you abuse, when you swell, it's because fluid, the body says, something's wrong here. Fluid rushes into the area to soothe, bathe, and heal. And it's swollen. And you're not going to get the same response. So be very careful about screaming. You can ruin your voice with one scream. If you've got a concert coming up, don't step on any snakes. Don't have somebody throw a spider at you. My voice teacher used to get so mad at me because I go to the University of Nebraska basketball games and I'd scream and yell and then try to come into a voice lesson the next day and I had no voice. He used to get so, and he was the one from Westminster over here. Yelling, you can yell a little bit. Hey, come on, kids, you're late. Come on, what's going on? But don't do it again and again and again and again. Or you're going to mess your voice up. And if you're about to sing somewhere, you got to take care of that voice. You got to treat that voice like it's the most priceless instrument that you could buy. A Bach Stradivarius trumpet or a Stradivarius violin. You have to protect the voice. Talking is the hardest thing, especially if you're a teacher. If you're a school teacher and you have to talk all day, you will almost not have a voice at the end of the day, regularly. And if you have teachers in your choir, advise them three things. Number one, warm up your voice before you go to school. And I'm going to tell you how to warm up, the best warm-ups that I use to this day. Warm up your voice before you go to school. And number two, buy yourself a little amplifier that you can wear on your waist that amplifies your voice throughout the day. You can buy them for as cheap as $25. And it's just a little body pack that you wear. It's battery operated. There are no cords except a little microphone that flips together kind of like this one. So if you have a school teacher that their voice is just done by the end of the day, I encourage to use that. And thirdly, try to talk in a most relaxed way that you can. Middle range. Try not to let the voice get too high or too low. Usually it's using your voice too high. So excessive talking, that's tough. Lack of use. For those of you that sing once a week in choir, you're going downhill fast. You need to keep that voice moving. I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. Here they are. A little footnote. The best I have used are lip trills and good exercises. And you can put your fingertips in the corner of your mouth and just and you can go exercises on the piano and think dumb in the back of your throat. Think dumb. Duh. The buzzing of the lips takes the pressure off of the vocal cords and allows you to strengthen your vocal cords. And this actually will help you to get through the ranges of your voice too. If you're a tenor and your voice is breaking on maybe even a high note, like a high A or A flat before you can go to the B flat, use this and it'll help you to get up there. Altos that struggle with that middle register, maybe around F, G, you're not sure where to go, these exercises will help you to get that. Now, that's exercise number one. Now, I have three of them. Say, good. Good. No, good. Good. Every one of those was a glottal stop. The old masters called it the stroke of the glottis. And every one of those can help you. And the exercise that I do is just I do a kind of slur, staccato. This exercise can actually help you to strengthen your low register too, so that your low voice can get stronger. That's why I call it the good exercise. But the best exercise that you can do on a consistent basis, every one of you at some time or another drives to work. You may drive with somebody, you may drive alone, you may take mass transit. If you do, that's a little more of a problem. But humming loudly. But you have to hum right. When you hum, lips are together, teeth are apart, and you're warming the front of your face. Just do that. Warm the front of your face. I start out like this. I do about 5 minutes of just this. Big breath. Are you kidding? 5 minutes up? Yeah. Maybe 2 minutes sometimes. If I'm on my way to work, I have a 6-minute drive to where I teach the kids. And I use that whole time to hum. It has made a remarkable difference in my voice. Because I kind of let my voice go because I didn't use it as much in my previous job. I'm back to using it again, and now my voice is getting stronger. Then just bump it up a fifth. And what you want to begin to do after you've done 2 or 3 or 4 minutes of the low hum to really warm it up, is you want to begin creating a more dynamic facial feel. So just for fun, let's just go on that pitch, everybody humming, and make it loud. Go ahead. Kind of like the fire alarm, that's happening outside, or well, you don't have earthquake drills here, do you? No, sorry. Do that for a little while, and then go back to. If you did that for 5 minutes a day, you would see a big change in your voice. This exercise actually allows me, for some reason, to sing higher than I used to be able to. I practice. I have a recording of the Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. All this stuff. The tenor part in the chorus. And I'll play that on the way to work, and my voice, even from just doing these humming exercises, on my way to work, on my way home, my range has increased, the freedom of my voice has increased. I tore a vocal cord one time, singing too loudly, and that's another thing you shouldn't do, is sing too loudly for a long period. Tore a vocal cord. I went silent for like 3 months. Went to the doctor, ENT, the whole thing, and I have a scar on it now, and that has inhibited my singing. But this exercise has really helped, and I have more ability to sing longer than I used to. So those 3 things, those 3 exercises are really money. If you want to work on getting through the register breaks in your voice, and everybody has them. And interestingly, the tenor register break and the alto register break are exactly in the same spot. Yours is in your low register, theirs is in the high register, but they happen at the same place on the piano. So working through those, both with the lip trills, the good, and the consistent humming on the way to work and back every day. So lack of use, you gotta use the voice. You gotta use the voice. Your singers have to use the voice, or they'll lose it. Hydration, you gotta drink a lot of fluids. As we get older, we need even more. And we hate to get up in the night and go to the bathroom, but you gotta do it. And hydration has so many other benefits for your health. Not just for the voice. But what it does is it keeps the mucous linings as moist as they can be, given your age and the medications that you take. Some blood pressure medications cause mouths to dry. cause cords causes you a little cough, some types of medications. Work with your physician on getting something that has fewer of those symptoms. But overcoming those can happen through strength of the vocal cords. The diet, I didn't go very far on this one. Adventists have no problem with diet, so I didn't say much about that. Right. We don't smoke, we don't drink, but you should see those plates at potluck.
And desserts.
Yeah, with no dessert. Diabetes is just. My wife helped conduct a seminar on diabetes. What do they call it? Diabetes on the dumb. How to get back from having adult onset diabetes and cooking and that. And it's astounding the percentage of Americans and the health factors that will go forward with that. So be careful what you eat. The most helpful diets are also good for singing. Diets that help you maintain a vibrant health are also good for singers. Avoid salty foods, sugary foods, and highly processed foods. Enough said. Practice, sustained practice several times a day, as I mentioned, will help you creative humming. And I talk about the humming down there at the bottom. Sore throat. There's not a whole lot you can do for a sore throat. I use Zicam when there's any hint of some kind of a cold or something. My wife got a cold a couple weeks back, and I started doing the Zicam, the one that you have, and you kind of little snap thing off, and you rub the inside of your nose with Zicam. I didn't get the cold. Now, I don't know if that's the reason or not, but I have had good success with Zicam. They have pills, but they kind of taste like a dirty nickel, when you suck on those for too long. So sore throats, hot liquids that are not caffeinated. Caffeine is a natural diuretic. Orange juice is a diuretic for some people, which leaches fluids out of your body. Stress is a killer to the voice. Learn how to manage the stress. We can't get away from stress. Stress is part of our lives, but learn how to manage it. That's important. And the spiritual connection. There's nothing more important than our spiritual connection when we're singing. All your musical efforts will be enhanced by the strengthening of your spiritual daily Christian walk with Jesus. Bible readings and study, daily devotionals, and constant prayer, a consistent prayer life, constant prayer life. You have peace, and you're able to manage the things that we have to go through in life with our spiritual connection. The presence of drums in churches is a tough topic in many churches. In some churches, they integrated drums and more popular acoustic and electronic instruments. And there's certainly the culture of the church tends to determine the level that certain kinds of music come into the church. Young people in particular will argue that hymns tend to be archaic, outdated, and boring. More traditional worshipers have a sense that in their minds that praise music is kind of an accommodation to other kinds of generational styles, kind of the same song over and over and over, or the same phrase over and over. Those are some of the criticisms that you hear. I'm not going to criticize either one, because I am not a judge of who is or is not receiving a tremendous blessing with either style. I will say this as a positive for hymn singing. We have a tradition in our Adventist church of great hymns that have great poetry, that have great sequential spiritual lessons, that are in many ways far more creative than the poetry found or the lyrics found in praise songs. That doesn't mean that one is better than another, but there is a kind of heritage that we enjoy for those of us that grew up with the hymns by continuing to sing them. They are not designed for the same thing. Hymns are by design for congregational singing. They are designed for people with low voices That's why there's a bass line in the hymns. For men with low voices, for men with high voices, that's why there's a tenor line. For women with low voices, that's why there's alto. And for women with high voices, that's why there's soprano. And the concept of hymn singing is collective. It creates a collective spirit that we, as hymn singers, all can engage in. It is designed for congregational unity in praise to God. That does not mean that praise songs are not. Praise songs come from popular music styles. Praise songs are things that particularly younger Christians will be drawn to more quickly. My caution with it would have to be that in many cases, praise songs do not allow the kind of singing engagement that hymns tend to. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that you can't get a spiritual blessing out of a praise song. That doesn't mean that at all. Praise songs, by nature, have been taken from spiritual or religious artists and brought into the congregation. And some of the challenges with praise songs is that the congregation simply don't know them. And so if I would offer advice to those leading praise, I would say find a mechanism that allows you to teach these songs to the congregation. And one of the other problems is that from church to church, praise songs are done differently. Hymns aren't. And you sing a hymn over in this church, it's the same hymn over there because they're reading out of the same book. But an artist leading a praise song over here may have different inflections, may have different embellishments than the praise singer from this church. Try to create a way in which the leaders of a praise group are focused primarily on bringing the congregation together in a corporate worship experience. I've seen praise music done in many churches, and I've seen it done where the focus was primarily on the performer. And I'm not criticizing those performers, but I know that in many cases, what their experience is as they do their praise music is not the same kind of engagement that would have everyone want to come and sing. Many times, too, the instruments drown out our voices in praise music. I've had that happen. That's not necessarily a criticism, but I know that that's an observation. And it's an inhibitor of singing, because if you can't hear others singing, you're not as likely to sing yourself. One of the best praise sets that I've ever heard was where the praise group, every time, there would be a short section where the instruments would drop out, the leaders would drop out, and the congregation could hear themselves sing that same praise song. It's called Vox Humana, the human voice. And when people sing together, something magical happens. They've done studies in which when people sing together, there is a rush of adrenaline, a rush of dopamine to the brain. There is, in fact, the heartbeat of entire groups of people will synchronize when they're singing together exactly. I don't think that's by accident. I think God designs us to be able to come together as a group to sing. So I always advise praise groups, teach us new songs. If you can, throw us a sheet with the melody line so that we can all sing with you. Because there's a lot of praise songs that I just don't know. I know some of the choruses from before, and I know As the Deer, that's a couple of decades old already. Those are old praise songs. But there are old members in the congregation, so throw one in once in a while. Put in an old praise song. Throw in an arrangement of a hymn that suddenly it stops and we're able to hear each other bring that gift of praise from our voices collectively to God in worship. It's hard. It's hard to do that. And as a pastor, if you're a pastor, the last thing you want to be doing is stepping on the toes of the young adults who have committed themselves to praise music. And many times, the praise teams wag the dog in a church. Because the pastor, the leaders of the church, don't want to upset the young people in the church because we want them in our church. But let me say this carefully. I'm on record now, aren't I? One of the biggest challenges in many of our churches, not all, but in many of our churches, is that we as adults have not modeled dynamic worship to our young people and our children. We haven't. We'll stand and mumble through a hymn. Well, no wonder they don't like our hymns. We'll stand and we'll stand up and sit down and do what they ask us to do. But do we really look inspired when we're doing this? Do we feel that spirit in such a way that it just radiates out to our children and our young people and our youth and our young adults? Have we appropriately modeled the worship that will keep them coming back to us and be happy to go there because the Spirit is at work and it's dynamic? The problem isn't that hymns are boring, it's that we've sung them in a boring way. We haven't given them the gusto. You read the scriptures and it talks about, praising God, doing this and doing that. I mean, exaltation and joy. We kind of get embarrassed if somebody, glory, and they stand and they go, come on. I love that. Now, we're pretty used to just sitting there quietly and boy, don't bother us. I'm an observer in this worship service and you're not going to get me out of my worship zone of observing. I think we've missed the boat, and I think our churches in many places suffer because we have not learned how to be a dynamic congregation that models dynamic worship to our children. And if we can find a way through praise music or hymns or whatever, the choir, whatever it is, that gets in front of our congregation, and we model that dynamic fashion that includes them when we do it, I think we're on the right path. We have a lot of things going on in the world right now. This week was a terrible week. We had the political infighting I've never seen in my life. We have fires in California that are burning right now, burning houses down right now, people that I know. We have a shooting at clubs, another one, 13 shootings in 307 days in America, or something like that. There are a lot of reasons for us as musicians to lead the way in dynamic worship of God that empowers those who sit in the pews, those who sit in the chairs of the choir, to have the strength and the freedom to go out and to be the Christian witnesses that we want them to be. That'll hasten the Lord's coming because we then begin reflecting the character of Christ, as Ellen White says. Then Christ will come as we reflect his character of unity, his character of love, of giving. We can do that as leaders in the church. I implore you to do that. I implore you to be that leader, be that dynamic person that makes a difference in your church. That does not exclude that guy that comes in off of the street and sits down on your front row. That does not exclude the person of ill repute that comes in. That does not exclude the one that smells like smoke as they come in. Inasmuch, the Lord says. I'm done preaching. I'm done teaching. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Stephen, I'm hungry.